Hey everyone, it's Zahava. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, I make videos all about my reading journey, and I hope that you will stick around and hang out and chat with me a while. So as you probably guessed from the title and the thumbnail of today's video, we are going to be doing a try a chapter video. If we go all the way back to the October TBR teapot prompt video, which I will link for you up here in the info cards if you guys have missed that video and want to go check it out. Today we're going to be selecting a few of those books, reading a chapter or two depending on how long those chapters are, and deciding which of those books, because in some cases, if you guys remember, for certain prompts, we had a couple of books that I was considering reading for those prompts. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to try a chapter. I will decide if I like the book and want to either shelve it or read it, as in put it back on the shelf to read at another time, or read it for the October reads. Or the third option is that I decide I really don't like the book, I'm not vibing, and then I'm just going to go ahead and put it in the unhaul pile for books that we will eventually be doing an unhaul for. Date to be determined on that video. So please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all of that stuff if you want to be notified as to when my unhaul video is going to be coming out. I'm still sort of trying to figure out the timing on that one, but I'm aiming for December, maybe in November. We'll see. So for today, we are going to be looking at these books, and I will put timestamps for you. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So the first reading prompt that we are going to do is the one that asks us to read a memoir. So if you'll remember, I had a couple of options for this. I had My Lovely Wife in the Psych Ward, and this is a memoir by Mark Lukács, or Lukács, I don't know. Maybe I won't leave this part in because I don't really know how to pronounce his last name. It's, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to try this one. So this one has to do with a man who is supporting his wife through her mental illness, and he talks about how that affects his life, her life, and their family. So I'm going to try a chapter of this one. Next, I have a copy of The Glass Castle, which has to do with a family of children that pretty much raised themselves, and they had kind of parents that were present but absent, if you know what I mean. And they eventually all became successful, moved to New York City. Their parents followed them, and for whatever reason decided not to live off of their children's charity or what have you. They chose to remain homeless, which is an interesting thing. So I would like to try this one as well. And lastly, I want to try, is there another one? I'm just wondering if I forgot one. Yes, I did. I did forget one. So this is not lastly. This is one of the last. This is My Year of Finding Memory by Judy Fong Bates, who is a second-generation Chinese immigrant to Canada. And she was raised in Canada. And I think that I made a mistake when I suggested that she was talking about her life in Canada, although I'm sure within this memoir she will be talking about her life in Canada, but I think it's more about her trying to connect with her Chinese roots back in China. So if I gave you guys the wrong information last time, I'm correcting it now. So this is going to just be about finding, you know, her soul searching, connection to her culture, to her family, that kind of thing. And then lastly, this time it really is the last one, is Memoirs of an Addicted Brain. So I will be trying a chapter in this one as well. And this one is a doctor who is an addict, or was an addict. I don't know. Can you be was an addict, or are you always an addict? Let me know if you want in the comments below, because I'm unfamiliar with this territory. But yeah, I would just like to see what that looks like. I remember this book, I picked it up for $1 at a Salvation Army thrift store. So, but it looked interesting to me at the time, and it has been sitting on my bookshelf for close to a year now. So it's definitely time to pick it up. And the second try a chapter that I'm hoping to get to in this video is going to be the prompt that suggested books with a gray spine. So in the end, I did put down the indie book that we selected because I just feel like 3 novellas in a book probably doesn't lend itself really well to doing a try a chapter, because each story will have a different voice, a different subject. It's really just not that conducive to this type of prompt. But I do still have these 3 which have gray spines, which I want to try. And the first one here is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. And this is by Carissa Broadbent. And this one is a romantasy, so I am a little skeptical about this one, because if it starts to read a little juvenile, I might not give it a fair chance. I'm kind of low-key worried that I'm not going to like it. But again, and I've mentioned this before, Willow of Willow Talks Books does say that this is a romantasy worth reading. So I will give her the benefit of the doubt, and I will try out this book, not the least of which reasons are because I already have the second book in this series, Don't Ask, and even though I've never read this author before and never tried any of her writing, I guess the second book was on special. I probably picked it out at Book Outlet or something, and because of what Willow said, and then, you know, kind of positively believing that I was going to like this book, I picked up the second one. I don't recommend doing that. It happened to me with The Cruel Prince from Holly Black. I picked up that one, never read it, never picked it up. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to DNF it and its companion because I didn't like Book of Night, and I don't know if I want to pick up any more of her writing. So anyway, that is neither here nor there. I want to try a chapter in this one. Then I have A Wild Winter Swan. I may choose to read this one just because it's a little shorter, but Gregory Maguire is an author that I am familiar with. I have read The Wicked Years, as we've stated before. So I want to give this one a go and see what it's all about. And then lastly, and this one, I'm going to tell you the truth, I'm a little skeptical about this one because it is a classic, and I don't do too well with classics. That, I believe, is because I have a degree in English Lit, and I did quite a bit of a survey of a lot of different genres, including classics, modern, contemporary American literature, like this. You know, I haven't read this one yet, but like, I just find that if you're going to major in English Lit, if any of you guys out there are English Lit majors, let me know in the comments below, because if you remember your classes at all, or even in something like high school English, you guys will remember that you would talk these books to death, to the point where you're beginning to wonder if you even like what you're studying anymore. So I'm a little bit skeptical about this one, but my stepdaughter said that I would probably really like it. It's one of her favorites, so I will give it a chance. But again, the options are to either read it, shelve it for reading at a later time, or to not DNF it. Well, I guess it would be a DNF it because it would be an unhaul at that point. So yeah, that's what we're going to do for today's video. We have a total of 7 books to get through, and I still have all of the other reading prompts sitting here on the end table in the to be read pile, which I don't know if I'm going to get to. There's Everyone on This Train is a Suspect and The Bullet That Missed, which are my 2. I don't know which one I'm going to read for the prompt that asked me to choose a book that was set in the 2020s, but it's probably likely that I might read them both. So I don't really think I need to try a chapter with those 2. Then I had The Nightingale, just to remind you, and I have The Fury of the Gods and The Mask of Mirrors. So there is a lot on the table right now. So let's start and see if we can't eliminate some of the possibilities.
A few moments later.
Okay, so I have just finished chapter 1 of The Bell Jar, and I gotta be honest, you guys, like, I'm just not feeling it. And I think that probably some of you could have guessed that. It's reading like a woman's version of The Stranger or of Catcher in the Rye. It's like a little too existentialist. I don't really like the tone. Probably you guys are going to be mad at me if you've read this, and you're probably going to tell me that I'm not really giving it a fair chance or that it's a misread, and I'm happy to discuss that with you guys in the comments, but unfortunately this one is going to be an unhaul because it's just not the type of book that I like to read, and that's what I was kind of low-key fearing when I picked it up. I'm just not vibing. I'm not vibing with this one, so we're gonna put this one down and go on to something that is hopefully a little more uplifting. I think that it merits a spot now in the video. I think that it's important to say that reading is a hobby, and if I'm not enjoying what I'm reading, there's no sense in reading it, no sense whatsoever. So this one, as I sort of suspected, not staying. This one is gone. Next, I'm going to go ahead and read A Wild Winter Swan by Gregory Maguire. I opened this earlier and I just wanted to show you. It's got like a little flippy page here. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's got this like, it's kind of cut funny. I don't know if you guys can see that. Like here too, it flips that way. I've never seen that in a book before. It's pretty interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and read the first chapter of this one, and I will get back to you and let you know if I decide to keep it, shelve it, or unhaul it. Okay, so the first chapter of this book, not very long. It's about 4 or 5 pages, and I believe this is going to be a fantasy magical realism, and I think I'm actually going to continue with it. Again, this is probably not very surprising. So we're following Laura, who is an Italian girl living in New York City. She's 15 years old. She seems to be an orphan, so maybe her parents are not around. She seems to also be living with her grandfather, and her grandfather seems to be a grumpy, sordid sort. So, but that's all we really know, just that like he walks into the house on a cold December day, it's round about Christmas time, and he's stomping his feet and muttering in Italian. We don't know what he's saying, but she is a bit of a dreamer, and when things happen to her in real life, she can kind of imagine them being told in story form. And when that happens, there's like different formatting. Hopefully that will come onto the camera for you guys. So yeah, I think I will be continuing with this one, or at least we're going to put it on the potentially to read for the Gray Spine books. And I'm going to just give the last book a try and see if I'm going to potentially want to read that one, and then we will make a choice as to what we're going to read in October.
5 minutes later.
Okay, so first I want to show you guys that this book has a map. It also has a prologue, and it has a a small first chapter. So I'm going to read both of them. The other thing is I could always decide, because this book has a prologue, that maybe I will just put back The Mask of Mirrors and read this one for that prompt instead. And then for the gray spine cover, I could read A Wild Winter Swan. So I do have some options that I could be potentially doubling up on as well, but let me get into the first 16 pages of this one. I am having a lot of trouble reading this just because the font point is so small. Like, this has got to be an 8 or a 9 font point, and it's ridiculously small, you guys. Like, it's so hard to read this book, and I don't generally read with my glasses on because I have myopia, so I don't need glasses to read. And actually, the glasses, because of their corrective components, kind of tend to make the letters smaller. So actually letters appear to me to be bigger when my glasses are off. And this is so small. Like, I don't know if I'm going to have an easy time reading this or not. It is presenting a difficulty. Okay, so I have just finished reading the prologue of this novel, and I'm actually intrigued. I'm not gonna lie. So I do want to go forward with this one and give it a better shot, potentially even reading it in October. I don't really think I need to read the first chapter. I'm intrigued enough with the prologue to want to go on. So basically you have a king, a vampire king, who with his guards stumble upon a young girl who could be 4 years old, she could be 8 years old, she's just very small, so they don't know exactly what age she is. And she's basically alone out there, I guess, in the woods. It seems to be a woodsy setting, and she bites this king, and he kind of takes a fondness to her and decides to pick her up and take her along with him and his knights, wherever it is that they are going. And they indicate that maybe this king would potentially love her like a daughter or that kind of thing. So anyway, if you guys have read this, let me know if I've understood it correctly or not. But I think I'm actually kind of liking this. And this, I like the tone of the novel. It doesn't seem to be talking down to or patronizing the reader, at least not so far. So I feel like I would like to give this one a go. And yeah, I'm going to put this on the list of keepers. Memoirs of an Addicted Brain. I mentioned before that this one is a story of a doctor who has recounted through his memoir the struggle that he had with addiction, but this is actually much more poignant than that. I didn't read the first chapter, I just read the introduction, but the introduction is pretty good. It gives you a summary of all of the events that he's going to be discussing, and it's given in a very colloquial tone, so it's almost like you're sitting across from the author and having a conversation directly with him. He's not just a doctor, he's actually a neuroscientist, and what it says in the introduction is that he came to this career because of and in spite of his addiction to drugs, and he basically had gotten married, gotten divorced, gone into prison, you know, anything that could have happened did happen to him, and basically for the last 12 years prior to this book being published, he has been practicing as a neuroscientist studying the effects of addiction on the brain. So just based on the introduction, not having to or needing to go into the first chapter, I already know that I want to continue in this book, so I'm going to put a bookmark in this one as well, and we're going to call this Try a Chapter a success. Just from what I have gathered from the introduction, I can tell that this is going to be a sordid story, and I'm here for that. Next, we will move on to The Year of Finding Memory by Judy Fong Bates, and we'll see how we go with this one, if we're going to keep it, shelve it, or scrap it.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
All right, you guys, so this one is also, strangely enough for a memoir, a book that has a prologue, which I have not seen very often in my reading, so that was interesting to find. I also would like to say that I really like Bates's writing. I think that it's very conversational, very, very accessible. You just feel kind of comfy, although the first paragraph of this memoir is extremely, extremely shocking. It's not really what you're expecting. It probably, I mean, I'm not spoiling anything for you guys, but basically the book opens with Fong Bates remembering the time that her father unalived himself in the basement of their home. And that was, of course, a very devastating experience for her. And she subsequently found a box of her father's old letters and documents under the bed, and a lot of it was written in Chinese, and she, having moved to Canada in 1950 when she was a young girl, didn't know how to read Chinese, kind of grew up Canadian, speaking English and all that, so she really had no connection to her roots and stuff, which is at least what we're able to glean from the prologue of this memoir. And also, she does share some of the original documents, such as this certificate from Dominion of Canada, which cost her father $500 in order to obtain, and that would have been in 1949, so $500 was pretty expensive. And for a document, although I don't know what that would equate to in today's monetary value, but I will say that I'm interested in this one. I would like to move forward with it, so it will possibly be a contender for the memoir for this month's prompt. I'm going to hang on to this one, so this one will be a keeper, definitely to be read. We'll make a decision once I'm done with the other 2 chapters, and then I'll make a decision as to what to read in October. But this one is a contender. Next up, we have The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls, and I will let you know in just a second when I come back from this clip what I think of it. Okay, you guys, I actually wanted to stop reading because I want to read the first couple of paragraphs to you guys. I don't really think I need to go personally further than the first couple of paragraphs to let you know that I'm definitely going to want to read this book. So let me just read you what it's written. Just here. So it says, I was sitting in a taxi wondering if I had overdressed for the evening when I looked out the window and saw Mom rooting through a dumpster with a capital D. It was just after dark, a blustery March wind whipped the steam coming out of the manholes, and people hurried along the sidewalks with their collars turned up. I was stuck in traffic 2 blocks from the party where I was heading. Mom stood 15 feet away. She had tied rags around her shoulders to keep out the spring chill and was picking through the trash while her dog, a black and white terrier mix, played at her feet. Mom's gestures were all familiar, the way she tilted her head and thrust out her lower lip while studying items of potential value that she'd hoisted out of the dumpster, again with a capital D. The way her eyes widened with childish glee when she found something she liked. Her long hair was streaked with gray, tangled and matted, and her eyes had sunk deep into their sockets, but still, she reminded me of the mom she'd been when I was a kid, swan diving off cliffs and painting in the desert and reading Shakespeare aloud. Her cheekbones were still high and strong, but the skin was parched and ruddy from all those winters and summers exposed to the elements. To the people walking by, she probably looked like any of the thousands of homeless people in New York City. It had been months since I laid eyes on Mom, and when she looked up, I was overcome with panic that she'd see me and call out my name, and that someone on the way to the same party would spot us together, and Mom would introduce herself, and my secret would be out. So, yeah, I definitely want to go forward in this book and read this book, so it's going to be hard. I'm getting the feeling like it's going to be hard to just choose one book for this prompt, but just based on the first 4 paragraphs alone, I don't need to finish the first chapter. I already know I want to know what's going to go on with this one, so, yeah, this one we will, again, hang on to, and I'll go ahead and try My Lovely Wife in the Psych ward next.
One eternity later.
Guys, so My Lovely Wife in the Psych ward, I don't think I'm going to read this month. I think this one is going to go back on the shelf because it is a book that I would like to continue. The first chapter didn't really give me much into the wife's story. It was really just a history of how Mark met his wife and setting up their sort of idyllic life that they had planned in the first 3 years of their marriage and that kind of thing. But we haven't really come to like the pivot point of when things started to go downhill. Not yet. I don't know if that will happen in the second chapter or the third chapter. I think that the writing itself, while very accessible, is not the strongest writing, and I am not quite at the point where I want to unhaul this book. I'd like to give it a chance, so I think that this one will end up back on the shelf. And that sort of brings me to the end of the vlog, at which point I need to make a choice. So just to summarize, we are going to be unhauling the bell jar, which I am just not feeling. This one is going to go back on the shelf. The contenders for the memoirs, we have Memoirs of an Addicted Brain, we have The Year of Finding Memory, and we have The Glass Castle. Now, I'm really kind of torn, but if I have to choose one of the 3, I think I'm going to go with Memoirs of an Addicted Brain. I will leave these 2 out, however, on the end table, in case I feel like getting to them. If I don't feel like getting to them, they're just going to go back on the shelf at the end of the month, and I will get to them another time. And lastly, we have A Wild Winter Swan, and we have The Serpent and the Wings of Night, both books which I do want to continue with in the month of October, and that's pretty much going to be it. So I want to thank you so much if you've come to hang out with me today. You know, if you stayed until the end of the video, you're absolutely my favorite. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel if you want to hang out with me again in the future and see how I go as I'm reading these books, and I will see you again in the next video. Ciao for now.